The most privileged and the least privileged have a lot in common. The only difference is that the most privileged can afford to be careless, whereas the least privileged cannot, and they get punished really badly. The most privileged have a lot of leverages, and that's why they can afford to be careless at times, whereas the least privileged don't have leverage but are entitled. They act being careless about risks and consequences that put them in a further disadvantage. The main difference between the most privileged and the least privileged is that the most privileged understand capitalism and play by the rules. The least privileged are the least privileged and remain the least privileged because they only know how to be the prey in the system. So yes, you see politicians doing trashy things, cheating, scamming. You see someone like Donald Trump who has absolutely zero elegance, still at the top. And then his followers, the least privileged, will try to copy his behavior thinking that this is going to help them. All that happens is that they just get scammed. In fact, anyone who's not the most privileged need to embody a lot more social elegance. The more oppressed you are, the more socially elegant you have to be, which means the more disadvantage you have in capitalism, patriarchy, and racism, the more socially elegant you have to be. The most privileged have to have social elegance with certain select people, but the number of people they have to be socially elegant with are fewer. Fewer because they're looking at people who are at their level or higher up. They can be careless to anybody who's at the bottom because it doesn't matter. They will always have the leverage and advantages. But if you're not at the top 1 to 5%, and the lower you are in the hierarchy, the more socially elegant you have to be because you have more people who can attempt to oppress you and give you negative consequences, rip you off, scam you at any moment. So sometimes people complain like this, nobody has poor relationship skills and they're wealthy. Well, you don't have a trust fund, so suck it up. Because in reality, this kind of attitude is only gonna get you in more trouble. Two things that backfire the most to the least privileged are disgruntledness and entitlement. The inability to emotionally regulate takes you to making horrible decisions. Short-term powergasm, long-term destruction. And sometimes so much destruction that you may have a really difficult time recovering. No matter what you feel and say, it will not change the society that has been running this way for thousands and thousands of years. I encourage people to play the game, especially women, especially if you are the most oppressed group. And no, we do not shame people for playing the game. However, if anybody tries to be a smartass and use the strategies they learned from me against me, my empathy disappears and I will absolutely destroy them. That is also part of playing the game.